Well, Warwick, it's been a long time. I'd just like to thank you for all the things you have done, especially on the computing side for us. And the good news is we will be starting to use the software, so I know you're going to say about time. I'm saying the same thing. There's a few things I wanted to talk to you about, so I made a list of them. One of the things is how much influence you have on the social media and people have. A lot of people think that they're not successful, not getting the message out because people are not clicking like and people are not sharing. But talking to a lot of people through my messenger, and like you probably get 30 a day, I'll get 30 or more, they tell me that they do read what we write, they do read what we post, and they watch the videos that we post, but they don't press like. They just don't press it, and they don't press share for a number of reasons. Some people, it's because of their workplace, their code of conduct. They could lose their job, especially if they're in government jobs. They're not allowed to comment on government policies and actions, etc. And the other thing is, a lot of people tell me that they banged on about political Islam for so long that their families got sick of it and they don't want to hear anything political, otherwise they've been losing families and friends. But you are an influencer, you are influencing people by just having the guts to say what's necessary. What I'm inviting you to is the Futurist Forum. I got a bit sick of reading about the Economic Forum, and it's just about the elite and governments trying to control us. You've got to have $700,000 plus to each year to join the forum, and it's so it's about control. It's about nothing else. But so I've created what's called a Futurist Forum because I'm sick of people jumping from here, there and everywhere and not being effective in any area. One of the things is that people don't plan, and our job is to plan, otherwise we plan to fail, as you would have heard plenty of times. With the Futurist Forum, a good example, the first thing we'll be doing is a survey. One of the politicians was telling me that they don't listen to surveys. Not a surprise to you or I or anyone else probably. However, they do listen to surveys if they based around if people are going to vote for them or not. Because they've got two objectives in life, politicians. The first objective is to look after themselves, and the second objective is stay in government and look after themselves. So if you put it like something like this, that would you vote for a politician who is selling out Australia, our infrastructure, our farmland, etc.? Yes or no? They're very interested in that. So with the forum, we'll be producing between us, there's about 15 people will be maximum on the forum. We'll be producing a survey that is really pointed directly at politicians losing their job or keeping their job. You're good at grammar, as you know I'm not. I can't say THs even, and I do have a memory problem, so I've got a bit of a disability there, so I'm looking and hoping that you'll join the forum and help us not just on the computer side but in the English language. That would help a lot. one of the other things is talking to politicians and our strategists. They tell us it's no good banging on about getting rid of halal. Halal is here to stay, it's not going anywhere. The government likes it, the businesses like it, and the Muslims love it. But they tell me, and most politicians are in favour of labelling, and they said we should change the focus, not about getting rid of halal, but making it illegal to sell anything that is halal that isn't labelled. And that will be on our agenda as well. The other thing is, what I'm really upset with these days is conspiracy theories and how rude patriots are. In 2013, I didn't find patriots rude. We listened to each other. We didn't always agree, and by listening we'd always pick something up. And we were more flexible in our mindset, so if someone told us something, we would go and find out more about it instead of just posting it. But now they're rude, and they post lazy as well, and they post conspiracies that don't make sense. The COVID-19 vaccine, we can't do anything about that. In a pandemic, they can get everyone vaccinated. They can direct you to be vaccinated, and if you don't, you go to prison. They can't tie you down and put it in your arm though. Morrison said that he's not going to make it mandatory. He doesn't have to say that because it's becoming mandatory. All government offices, if you work in them or are contracted to them, you'll have to have had the jab and proof of it. To go into a government office, you're going to have the jab. If you're going to go into the health system, you'll have to have it. And if you are in the health system, whether it's government or private, you'll have to have the jab. The union for teachers, I notice, are pushing for them to get it quicker. And my daughter's teacher said everyone at school can't wait to get it, all the teachers there. Transport, interstate transport by bus and by trains, as well as the planes, you'll have to have it, according to my friends at Transport. Australia Day, it's kind of could disappear at any time, but Harry, Lee and Trevor, they've really been motivated with the convoy. It's very difficult for them to get their local council on that on board. Here we're lucky, they've got Australia Day where there's markets and bands and that. You've got to treat it as an event. You don't have to pay, but you've got to register because they want everyone's information if it goes to shit. Lee in Queensland asked me to create some Australia Day t-shirts, not for Australia Day, but to promote it, because there's less people interested in Australia Day, and there's less people doing any of the Australian Day activities, so that they asked me, and that's what those shirts were for. There's a few people have purchased those shirts, which has surprised me. If they've change your national anthem without asking you, I think that's a sign of things to come. They'll just do things without consulting. One of our big job as the Futurist Forum is, I've noticed when I talk to people about Labor, no one's heard of the Fabian Society, and not one other person, whether that's in the social media bubble within a bubble we live, or external, they've never heard of the Fabian Society or of any Labor members being and Prime Ministers being Fabians. They don't realise that the Fabian Society, its job is to, by small change, head us to socialism. So that's one of the big things we want to create, a strategy to destroy labour based around the Fabian society. You'll be able to help there with your great grammar, etc. And our objective is to decimate them. Something we've got to remember is the Communist Party is the enemy, not the Chinese people. We should still be supporting our local businesses, and Chinese takeaways and restaurants are within those local areas. However, with Chinese buying food and eating food that comes from China, we can choose. It's not necessary. We've got our own food in Australia. We've got our own that we're growing. Jennifer and I here are growing our veggies, and when we go into town, which is 15 kilometres, 15 minutes away, that's when we might have Indian or something with meat in it. I created that preppers site, not people under cross preppers, not because it was one of those bunker type prepper things, but for people to be prepared, people to find out how easy to go about gardening, etc., and being self-reliant and self-sufficient as much as possible. One of the things when I was at work, I'm retired now, was one night we watched a prepper show, and it was on YouTube, and it was saying that everyone should keep $600 cash in their safe at home for things when things go to shit. You may not be able to buy groceries for a week if electricity's got a problem. You just don't know what could happen, but if you've got that $600 cash speaks a lot. The other thing that's suggested, people have lawnmowers and they have petrol fuel for their lawnmowers. They should have a drum of fuel for their car, because if we've only got a limited amount of fuel in Australia, it's I think 2 or 3 weeks. If the Chinese or someone decides to cut the flow, then you can't get around. If you're going to go and get fuel tomorrow, you won't. If the grid goes down and cuts off the power to these fuel companies. In the old days, I didn't realise how old you were. I thought you were about my age, but you're a little bit older. I'm 67 this year. You used to be able to crank and still do the pumps, but now you can't if the electricity's out. So if there's an outage for a few days, you won't have fuel. So there's little things, and that's what that side is about, little things. Child abuse. Jennifer and I wear our shirts, and like I just put this shirt on, but when I finish here I'll take it off. I'm actually cleaning records today, and then I've got to do some gardening. And when I go into town, I wear our shirts for a message. A lot of people think that the social media bubble is how everyone thinks. Well, most people I've talked to in the real world, and a fair few have talked to me in social media, they've sent messages, they don't put it on Facebook, but they can't wait for the jab. They want to go on cruises. I'm not sure why, but they want to go on cruises. They go 2 or 3 times a year with their friends. Others want to go and see their kids, their grandkids as well. So they're wanting to put their hand up, and as I said, the teachers, even the teachers' unions, the people, it's the real world. People aren't looking at it. We get in our little social bubble and we think that's the real world. People are still sending me shit, conspiracies about Trump's going to come back and all these things, and I think, well, you can't do anything until it's happened. Well, the election's happened and it's going to affect Australia, but we should be working on the things that we can control, like halal and like child abuse and things like that. But people are worried about the big things. They're not worried about what's happening in their electorate, their backyard. That's where they should be fighting. That's their battlefield, is the electorate, and that's where people should be. with child abuse, about the Communist Party, we can, the food, we shouldn't be eating anything that's manufactured in China. Like honey comes from New Zealand, but it's from China. And my neighbour sells me my honey, and he's got chooks up the back, and he sells me the eggs. So we shouldn't be doing that. However, we've got no choice with other things. For example, medication, as you probably realise, over 80% in the States comes from China, and they own a lot of the patents and things like that. And then some from Brazil and some other small countries. Then the other majority is from India, but 95% of the ingredients in those medications that come into America are from China. So I have medical problems, I've got diabetes, I'm not going to stop taking my Chinese tablets, and it's the same. I've got a few lawnmowers here, a couple of ride-ons and an electric one and Rover, and all the parts for them are Chinese, even though one of the ride-ons comes from the States, but the parts come from China. It's the same for our cars, our motorcycles, and we can't do anything about that unless there is an option at the time, but generally there's not an option for those things. Medication we can't, however food we can. Now 6th of February is International Day of Zero Tolerance for Female Genital Mutilation. Now the UN puts this up for every country in the world. I don't like the UN, but I always say we should use them, and we've had some bike rides and things, and we've got patches that people can wear on their jeans or on their levers and that. And I went into Bunnings with Jen, and we had our t-shirt on against female genital mutilation. Anyway, I went back the next day. I always forget I don't seem to get everything, so I always have to go back the next day. I wore the shirt again in, and this young girl from Bunnings came up and she said, "What's female genital mutilation? Is that where you have piercings and that?" And I explained to her that no, that's not the case. This is what the case, and that it's happening in Australia, as well as the schoolgirls are getting sent back to Muslim countries to have it done during school holidays. She was shocked, and I said she knew what child brides were, but she said that doesn't happen in Australia. And then I explained, well, that's not the case. The thing she did know about was child trafficking for prostitution, etc. Anyway, she told me the reason she asked was they saw Jen and I the day before, and they were wondering what it was. None of them in the meal room knew. None of the ladies knew what female genital mutilation was. So that's why when she saw us again, she come up to find out. And in the real world, I haven't had people really know what it is. And those that do seem to think it's a cultural thing and that it's all right, but they don't understand what it is. And same with child bride, it's a lot of people. So the real world, not the social media bubble within a bubble that we're in, they all understand within the social media world, but in the other world, the real world, they don't. And a good example is in Queensland. I had all these people telling me on social media that Pauline Hanson was going to win for sure, Labor didn't have a chance. But they didn't talk to the forgotten people, the hidden people, the people that are in the real world. My neighbour doesn't have internet, and I notice a lot of the people around here don't have internet. You know, we're taking it for granted, not you and I, but the patriot movement, that is the real world. And it's hard to stop people believing that the real world is the world of the people they associate with on Facebook. Electorate support hubs and local action groups. As I mentioned, your backyard that you fight in should be your electorate. you can't really do anything and vote Dan out in Victoria if you're in New South Wales or Queensland. So you've got to work on it here. What we're asking is each person on the Futurists, it's up to them on the Futurist Forum, would they be willing to have a Facebook group that they manage, and when people, ministers and that, do the wrong thing in their town or bad decisions and that, they would post it on it. They wouldn't be posting every day, they'd just be posting the things that are going bad. Facebook, Instagram versus other social media sites. A few years ago, when Truthophones lost 36,000 people because people were putting shit on there, hate shit, which isn't the right thing to do. And most of the people they had on there was from the States anyway. But they wanted me to go to one of the other social media. When I had a look at it, it was owned by the Russians. And the Russians actually, government was close with the new owners of it. The second one I had a look at was owned by a marketing company in the States, and their core business is marketing and selling people's information. And the third one was Chinese related. However, my advisors tell us we should stick with either our own, which that's where we've got to head to, or Facebook and Instagram, because there's a little bit of a built-in protection there if you want to keep your house. Because if you get shits and accidentally put something that incites hate crime, Facebook are right onto it. However, on these other ones, you're allowed to write what you want. You're allowed to put porn on there. I can't believe that. Kiddie porn even. It's just wrong, but there's no protection in them. And defamation of character is another one. If you do it on the others, you still get caught out. If the person sees it or the government sees it, they go after you. But on Facebook, at least, there's that little bit of protection. They might even ban the person. We do have a need for our people in Parliament, and I think that's a good idea. Ellie, who you probably don't know, and Elizabeth Power, they were in the Pauline Hanson, they ran for Parliament. There's a need to highlight ministers' deficiencies to the electorate, their policies deficiencies to the electorate, and the party deficiencies to the electorate. You've probably been following the Great Reset and probably have said, Jansen, why are you banging on with things about the Great Reset? All I can say is what first concerned me was that the government wanted you to be happy, and they want you to own nothing and you'll be happy. Scary when a government wants people to be happy. Normally it's about themselves. But Amazon has a book that it's all about by the originator of the design of the concept. In Australia, the only government party against the Great Reset is Pauline Hanson's party at the moment. The rest have, they think it's not a bad idea. But the Amazon book, if you buy it online to use on a Kindle or on your phone or tablet, it's less than $7. So that's all I'll say about the Great Reset, but keep an eye on it. We need to encourage self-reliancy and self-sufficiency, and as I said, that's why I created that people under the cross preppers, just to get people to understand that. I don't know if you know Elena Smith from Cairns, if she's on your Facebook, but she always does everything in uppercase, so I always know it's Elena Australia as soon as I see it, except when she sends me a message it's in proper case. But Elena put a meme on it and said global non-compliance, and I go, I like that, global non-compliance. And then I thought to myself, I'd like to be global non-compliant. And how do you do that? Barter for goods, shop local owned stores, avoid large corporate stores, grow as much food as possible, buy used items, recycle, upcycle, avoid fast food stores, get to know your neighbour. And I thought, well, that's quite easy. Doesn't take a lot of effort. You can't necessarily do it all. You may have nothing to barter. But shop locally owned stores, yeah. Avoid large corporate stores, yeah. Grow as much food as possible. Buy used items. Recycle, upcycle, yeah. Avoid fast food stores and get to know your neighbour. So that's all I've got to say. I'm hoping that you can come on board with us and help us in a few areas, but I've always valued your opinion as well, and plus we do need someone representing religion on there, because that's one of the things in the Great Reset that the churches are up against. They would like a global religion. You know, it doesn't. It's just not right, and it wants people not to own anything. I don't think people are going to be happy not owning things, and even though I think people could live a much simpler life, and coming to the country is a great way to do that. But again, I hope that you will come on the Futurist Forum, and that will give us what we're going to focus on from now on. So there might be 5 things of focus. I don't really want more than that, because we've got to have a plan for each strategy. If we don't plan, then we're going to continue to fail like we have badly. Anyway, thanks again, Warwick, and hope you and your family have a good new year. Probably politically you won't, but I'm hoping health-wise and maybe financial will be really good for you. Thank you very much again.